During the winter of 1976, in the countryside of the land just on the border of the Kansas and Missouri state lines, south of Kansas City, about 30 miles, there was a kid who went rabbit hunting. What he saw that day has left him wondering what it was and how many of them there are in the wilderness. Were they a threat to human beings? Were they aggressive? His experience only left more questions than providing answers. I was that kid many years ago. I can tell you it was an overcast day with snow on the ground, which is why I was out rabbit hunting. If you don't have a dog or dogs, you aren't likely to see but maybe two or three rabbits all day long. That was usually that was using the search and destroy method. When snow is on the ground, it greatly increases the chances of finding rabbits because of following their tracks. If normally you saw three rabbits, it was likely you would see six, with snow helping. Perhaps the thing was following the same rabbit I was after. Maybe it was tracking me. I just know I had entered a really thick part of the woods, which I think was just as thick and tough for that thing to get through as it was for me. We had been parallel to each other our entire struggle through the underbrush. I very much doubt it was hunting me. I say that based on how surprised it looked, which I am certain that I did also, because we came out of the thick stuff at the same time. Both of us kind of stumbled out of the thick stuff. It was on all fours at that point, so it just looked like a huge coyote or wolf. Way too big to be any kind of a fox, though it had sharp features like a fox, triangle-shaped ears, and a profound snout, which I would associate with German shepherds. I was a fat little 13-year-old, who I'm sure had chubby red cheeks to go perfectly with my fat ass and very round body, making me look like the biggest spoiled little mama's boy who ever escaped her helicopter approach to parenting. In other words, if I was hunting me back then, now looking back on it, I can hardly blame the monster. I must have looked like a sweet, chewy treat wrapped up in a bow, even though I was carrying my mighty 22 caliber single-shot rifle. Still, a rifle is a rifle, and getting shot by one is going to hurt. I don't care how big you are. And that was my attitude back then, and it still is today. If you've ever been shot with a BB or pellet gun, then you know I am correct when I say that you may know the gun isn't going to kill you, but you still either respect it or you will learn to quickly respect it. Why? Because it hurts when you get shot. A lot. Even when you know you can kick that kid's butt, you still do not go straight at him unless you are just plain stupid, or it is your brother who knows that shooting you at point blank range will only result in a worse lifetime of punishment. There is probably a really wise saying which fits that circumstance, but the best which comes to mind is that a coward lives to fight another day. Which brings me back to myself when I came out of the thick woods at the same time as this beast. Well, the first thing I did was to level my rifle at it. The first thing it did was to rise up on its back feet, which I don't know how tall it was, but it seemed like it was at least 10 feet tall. Now, looking back on things, if I do some figuring, such as if it was a big-sized canine, then maybe 6 or 7 feet, I would guess. Anyway, I had to crook my head upwards to keep eye contact with it, which I did out of self-preservation. I didn't shoot at it at first when I first saw it because it wasn't what I was hunting. I wouldn't have shot at it if it had been an actual fox, coyote, or wolf. My reaction of leveling the rifle at it was purely a reaction of defensive manner, which is why I did not fire the gun. Which is why, likely, I am here to tell this story today. I was lucky enough to have the threat of, yes, you can attack and kill me, but I am first going to ruin your day in a most painful manner. As long as I didn't fire the gun, it had to think twice about making a move on me. We sat there for what seemed like 5 minutes, and I bet it was over a minute in real time. Only about half the time was spent on sizing the other up. The first 30 seconds, or 2.5 minutes, depending on your point of view, were spent in complete surprise at coming upon the other. That is why I really don't think it had been hunting me. Both of us were shocked, and I think both of us were like we had come upon something we had never meant to meet up with. And in my case, if I had told somebody what I was seeing, they would have never believed me. If I had killed it, that was another story. I'm just kidding. The idea of killing the thing with what I had to use never entered my mind. In my best imagined scenario, I would be able to wound the beast in a lethal manner so it eventually died after, of course, having killed me dead. When you're a 5 foot 12-year-old looking at something standing, let's say, 7 feet tall, the only way you would believe you could kill that huge beast would be if your gun turned into a grenade launcher. I had been shot with a BB gun. Don't tell me a 7 foot plus beast with sharp fangs and sharp claws and muscles, which rippled under its gray colored skin, couldn't take being shot with a .22 rifle. Those things maybe have the girth of two BBs side by side. It was pretty obvious to someone who had been shot by BB guns that shooting this huge beast was only going to piss it off. Maybe if the shooter was an expert who could place the bullet exactly between the creature's scary amber-colored eyes, it might kill the thing. I didn't fit that description. Well, we sat there looking at each other for that amount of time, which seemed stopped for those two briefest of moments. The first being a time that actually felt shared with the beast, as we both were so totally surprised that perhaps there was no other choice than to feel like we were on the same side for that briefest of time. And funny as this is going to sound, I believe it mattered. In fact, I think it is the biggest reason the creature did not act on that second of briefest moments when we went from being buddies, who had both survived a really weird experience, to being hunter and hunted. Which of us was which, however? I had the gun, yet he or she clearly had the size which would ultimately win any battle we entered into. Though, as mentioned, I still represented a lot of pain for the trouble. Looking back on it, I'm left to wonder, did the beast consider any of these things? Or did it simply choose to move on because it would have been injured, or was the decision partly based on our time, shared as buddies? As I said, I believe it mattered. You had to be there, but it was like both of us at the same time said to God, "What is the deal?" This was not in our contract. And then we looked at each other as if to say, "Well, what now?" Now, perhaps the creature was saying to itself that this was turning out to be some day. It was looking very much like he might end up being shot in the ass or worse by this dumpling of a human being, which normally he would have had for a snack and not thought twice. Now he was facing a lot of pain. He was still going to eat the little shit, but it wouldn't be worth it. And then he noticed I hadn't shot him yet. Maybe there was a chance for both parties to just chalk this up to a big mistake in the contract. No harm, no foul, just be on our way. We did share that moment of surprise. Why, that practically made us blood brothers. Okay, maybe he didn't go that far, but it seemed to be enough for him to just back away like 2 steps, and then with one last look into my eyes, it dropped to all fours and was gone into the brush. I was left holding my rifle on empty space. I had the chance to shoot, but had chose to not fire on the thing. I still had a distance to travel back through the forest to make it to my motorcycle. I don't mind telling you that was a very scary walk. Something so big would have had an easy time overpowering me, which is another reason I think that the moment we spent together, being surprised, really did matter and made us together just enough that, at least when combined with the fact that I was armed and might get lucky with a shot, was enough for the beast to decide to leave me alone. Well, I found my motorcycle and went home, and I never told anybody about my experience because who would have believed me? Back then, nobody had ever heard of a Dogman, with maybe the exception of folks in Michigan who dealt with the Beast of Bray Road. I certainly had never heard of it. Over the years, I convinced myself I had just imagined that happening. I didn't give it any further thought until the Dogman stories started appearing. It was then I knew I had not imagined what I saw. They are real. They are intelligent. I wouldn't want to have to rely on their mercy in any stretch of the imagination, even though I have a story to tell, which is, if not involving mercy, then it surely involved choice. The creature could have clearly won a battle between us, whether it took a bullet or not. And though I very much feel the rifle kept me alive, I don't think it was the sole factor. I'm here to tell this story. There is another story I told, which was of the first ones I posted. So it is even rougher than my current attempts, but the story is quite interesting. It's about 2 boys who ended up in a blizzard with 2 dogmen. A couple, and one is giving birth. Anyway, it is another Dogman story where everybody survives, but it looks like things are going to end the other way right up until the surprising end. I will have a link at the end of this video. Thanks for visiting. Please subscribe and know it is appreciated, and it really helps upstart channels like this. Godspeed to all.